Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. It's great to be here. I appreciate the opportunity, and thank you to the team for the time today. My name is Matt. I lead our data and research team at Farmers Business Network. We're based in the US. I'm in California, but we have operations in Canada and Australia as well. And yeah, I'm excited to tell you a little bit more about who FBN is as a company. I know we're still relatively new to the agriculture space and not yet active in the Latin American market, but we're excited to change that in the future, of course. And also looking forward to telling you a bit about our company as a whole, also our initiatives in the biological space that we're very excited about. We'll share a little bit of our perspective on how the biological space is developing and some of the exciting trends and some of the opportunities that we see from the farmer's perspective, and then also from the perspective of a distributor and retailer, which is part of FBN's business that I'll tell you a bit about. And then we'll wrap up with just a few summary suggestion points, ideas on how we can collectively as an industry work to accelerate the adoption of biologicals as much as possible. So just to give a little bit of background of Farmers Business Network, or FBN for short, our mission as a company, the reason we started FBN, has really always been to help farmers be more profitable and more efficient. We consider ourselves really a network of growers that works to help those farmer members improve their operations, improve their profitability, and ultimately leverage data and technology to be more successful and more profitable and more efficient at running their farms. That's obviously a very broad goal, right? There's a lot of different ways that you could try to achieve that mission, and we'll talk a little bit about how we do that. But really, at the core of everything that we do at FBN is the network. And FBN is now a network of over 30,000 farms that collectively farm, well over 75 million acres now, largely in the United States, Canada, and Australia. You can see our geographic spread, mirrors the spread of farms in these countries, with a lot of growers in the Midwest growing row crops in Western Canada, and a number of specialty crop growers in the West Coast of California, Pacific Northwest, the parts of the East Coast as well. And really, this network is at the core of everything that we do. It's what enables us to offer our software tools to growers, and it's what enables us to offer our commercial offerings to farmers as well, that I'll give a quick summary of in just a second here. So really, a way to think about FBN is a network of commercial growers who are all collectively come together to access valuable tools and services that are really enabled by the network. And the network gets stronger, more members join, all the offerings become more powerful. FBN is a relatively new company. We were founded in 2014, so we're still quite new by agriculture standards, but what we've grown a lot over the years, thanks to support from some tremendous investors, as well as a large employee base that has grown to almost 1,000 employees now, largely spread out, very distributed team. But some of our major headquarters are in the Bay Area in California for our technology organization in Silicon Valley, but we also have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of employees out in rural communities around North America and Australia, really focused on directly interfacing with farmers, which is a critical and very important personal connection to have back to the actual grower. There's a couple of different parts of FBN, and we'll talk a little bit more about a couple of these that are most relevant, I think, to this group. But the first of these is really focused on helping farmers make data-driven decisions about their farming operation. We'll come back to that in just a second, so I won't go into that in great detail right now. The second part is really helping farmers purchase inputs for their farm. So FBN Direct, again, we'll talk a little bit about this more in a couple of slides, is really focused on helping farmers buy high-quality crop inputs at very competitive prices with very good agronomic information to back it up, delivered very quickly and conveniently directly to the farm. And then the third part of FBN is our financial services platform, which is a little bit less relevant to this discussion in this group today, but is an important part of our business as well. And this focuses on helping farmers obtain financing, for example, when purchasing inputs, when purchasing land. It helps growers insure their crops against risk and damage. It also helps farmers market their grain by connecting them with grain buyers and contracts and other offerings that help farmers manage their cash flow and make the best decisions about how to actually sell their grain in addition to growing the grain. First of all, I'll talk a little bit more about the FBN data analytics system. This is really where FBN started and is still an important part and differentiator in what we do. The idea here is really building off the reality that farming is extremely complicated, right? There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of decisions that farmers must make about input use, agronomic factors, pricing, crop marketing, and all these decisions have a very significant impact on their profitability and on their environmental impact, on their yields, on their risk. And historically, making some of these critical crop management decisions was not easy, right? A lot of these decisions were complicated with many competing factors, and a lot of the decisions were made in large part based on personal experience, right? And local experts providing recommendations to the farmer. And those data sources can be very valuable. At the same time, we also realize that there's a lot of value that is left on the table when making decisions based more on personal experience and less on really robust data and analytics. So we saw an opportunity to supplement some of that personal experience, which is very important, with data that can help shape and guide how personal experience affects certain decisions on the farm. So what we do when a farmer joins FBN is we aggregate data about their farming operation, the locations of their fields, the underlying environmental characteristics of those fields, like the soil and the topography, in addition to everything that the farmer is doing on those fields, like their planting practices, their fertilizer use, their chemical use, any biological products they're using, along with rates and timings and tank mixes and everything you can possibly imagine about what the farmer is doing. We also track yield data and a ton of third-party data sources as well on the weather, remote sensing data, soil topography information, all of which gives us a very complete picture of everything that happened on that particular farm. Now, what really makes the data valuable is when we aggregate that data together across the network, right? You imagine data from one farm can be very, very insightful and very useful. But ultimately, what makes data really, really powerful is when we aggregate that data together across a lot of different growers. Data from one farm is sometimes not enough to really evaluate the full breadth of possible crop input usage and different management practices that would take a very long time for one farmer to experiment with on their own farm. So we take the data from our network of growers, right? So we have hundreds of millions of acres of historical data that have been submitted to FBN. And in aggregate, we can make the data set very anonymous, right? We never show data about an individual grower, but data in aggregate from this network can be really, really powerful. It both protects the farmer anonymity, and it also enables us to answer questions along the lines of, well, what if I had tried something different, right? What if on my farm I had planted a different seed or used a biological product or reduced my fertilizer or applied fungicide at a different time? Any of these decisions that are, very important are hard to analyze with data from one farm alone. So here what we really focus on doing is aggregating this data from our network so that we can help growers make decisions about these products based on data from the network. So what we do here is we really focus on, helping farmers use data that we've aggregated from the network to understand how their practices and products might compare if they were to try something different, right? If they were to plant a different hybrid use a different crop input. Data from the network can help inform growers how those products may work on their farm. So this is a very important way that we provide value back to our members, is by giving them this transparent data about how products are working in the real world that can really help them make decisions about what they want to do on their farm and what's going to lead to the greatest success. So this is a core part of what enables our network to be compelling and provide a reason for farmers to join. We also have now launched a couple of commercial businesses on top of that. And I want to spend a few minutes talking about FBN Direct because it's a very important part and related to what we talk about later. FBN Direct is really a direct-to-farm inputs purchasing platform for growers to buy a wide range of inputs that they might need for their operation. And the way that this works is FBN partners, in many cases, directly with technology developers in the biological space, in crop protection, in seed, in livestock products as well. And we license those products and distribute those products directly to growers in the FBN network. This is a very different model than traditional ag retail, right? We have a lot of steps in the chain that we have cut out in terms of brokers and wholesalers and distributors. We partner directly with technology developers and then deliver those products directly to growers in the FBN network. We also have a very digital enabled model here. From our perspective, the way farmers buy inputs is changing. It's not changing overnight, but it is changing steadily. And growers are increasingly coming to expect and appreciate some of the same e-commerce and digital capabilities that we take for granted as consumers, right? We can go online and buy pretty much anything, look up information on anything. And historically, that hasn't been the case for crop inputs. But we really see that changing, and there being a quickly growing interest in farmers being able to very quickly look up the right products, get data and digital tools to help them find the right products at the right price, and then able to transact in a transparent and efficient way to have those products shipped directly to their farm. And that's exactly what we do through FBN Direct. You can see, we have our own logistics centers, our own delivery vehicles, and a digital buying experience that really leverages data and technology to make the selection of crop inputs as seamless as possible. We also do have a lot of people on the ground, right? So we realize that not every farmer is in the same situation, and some do want and or need a person locally to help them make input decisions, and we completely understand that. And we also have a lot of farmer dealers and FBN representatives who are able to meet them in person if needed, and assist on the ground as well. So definitely a hybrid model for now, and something that will keep evolving. And we offer multiple products through that platform. Like I said, crop protection, growing portfolio of biological products that we're really excited about. That's an area we're really committed to, as I'll talk about here in just a second, and really focused on growing that part of our business. So I want to talk a little bit specifically now about some of make sure our business is growing in the biological space. So I want to talk a little bit about how we approach that, and this is something we think is really, really important and going to have a huge impact on the market in the future. One of the core programs that we operate in the biological space that we're really excited about is really partnering with technology developers who are doing research and development in the biological space to test and commercialize their technologies through FBN Direct. And this is a place where we are a very good partner to a lot of companies, because we don't do the basic research and development and scientific discovery work in the biological space, right? That's not where we're investing. That's not where we're spending our time and effort. But there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of companies who are doing great work. And we can partner and complement some of their skills. And where we can be very effective is in helping those companies access field trialing capabilities across the markets that we serve, in addition to helping them with product development efforts and product placement, And also regulatory registration are capabilities that we have in-house as part of our FBN Direct team. And then ultimately, most importantly, is the path to market. We have a large group of growers who are purchasing crop inputs from FBN, and we love to partner with technology developers to help get their technology commercialized through our network. So we partner with a lot of innovative technology developers in the space. Our on-farm R&D program really focuses first on taking those technologies and running them in field trials with FBN growers. We get a lot of robust data on product performance. We'll talk about this a little bit more. That really helps farmers figure out, which products work, where they work best, how to use them effectively, and that hopefully flows into commercialization discussions through FBN Direct after the conclusion of trials that go really well. Really what this is focused on doing is helping break down some of the barriers that we see today that are limiting the adoption of biologicals. And we're really excited about the space. We're very committed to it. We think it's going to it's already playing a big role, but it's going to grow very quickly. At the same time, there are some things that I think that are preventing the biological sector from growing as fast as it could. One of those is really the lack of robust data on how these products work in the real world, right? There's a lot of data on how products work on research farms and labs and greenhouses. But the reality is that often isn't sufficient to convince both retailers and farmers that these products are worth giving a try. There's also difficulty in placing products in the right spot, right? So we have a tremendous, amount of data on product performance in different environments. And the reality of biologicals, right, is that there is very different performance in different regions, right? The best product, this isn't glyphosate, right? This isn't something that's commoditized and is used pretty much everywhere. This is something where the right product depends heavily on the growing conditions and the field conditions. So we really focus on, testing products in the real world on farm, right, in realistic conditions across a wide range of environments. So we can figure out what are the different growing conditions and weather patterns and regions where each product is going to be most successful. And then the other part is it's difficult to get to market, right? There's so many companies in the space. There's only so many retailers to work through, right? And building the channel to growers is very difficult to do individually. So our large growing direct-to-farm inputs purchasing platform is a very effective way for reaching growers and scaling distribution and commercialization of technologies faster than it was before. Typically, we will partner closely with companies to really figure out what are the products that make the most sense to test, what are the regions and field conditions that we want to target, the agronomic practices where we want to test new technologies based on the underlying science and agronomy of the product. And then we focus on using growers from our network as the actual testers, right? So we don't do trials on a research farm. We do trials in the real world with our actual growers. These are typically very highly managed, high quality replicated strip trials, right? These are not just qualitative, send the product out and ask the grower for their feedback, right? These are very carefully managed, robust, rigorous, statistically relevant, replicated strip trials on usually tens to hundreds of acres, depending on the product. And then really what flows from these trials is data-driven commercialization, right? So as I mentioned before, right, not every product is going to work well everywhere. Not every field is going to have the same set of technologies that are going to be the most successful there. So we focus on collecting a tremendous amount of data about our trials so that we can really analyze how different products are performing, what the regions and management practices are that lead to these products having the greatest benefits. And then we leverage that with our digital tools to help sell those products in a very efficient way, right? So rather than having products sold based on just relationship or just based on, I heard somebody talking about this product, right? Our goal is to be very data-driven in saying, okay, because your field has these conditions and because this product works in this way, here are a set of products that we think are most likely to provide a benefit on this particular field, and place those products very, very precisely to help ensure success in the market. So now just, before we wrap up for questions, right, I wanted to share a few thoughts first from the farmer perspective and then from the retailer perspective. What are some of the both the excitement areas, right? The strong trends that are leading to excitement about biologicals, but then also what are some of the challenges, right? What are some of the limiting factors that are holding back the growth from going as quickly as it could? So we'll share that from both the farmer side of view, and we, very close to our members, and I think have a very good sense of what our farmer members are thinking in this regard, and then also from the perspective of a commercialization partner in the biological space. So farmers are, in our view, very excited about biologicals, right? That this is an area that has had a lot of excitement, and I think that excitement is growing for a variety of reasons. First and foremost, I think farmers are always thinking about ways to improve their profitability. Right now, commodity prices are high, but that's probably not a permanent situation, right? Commodity prices will fall again in all likelihood, and farmers are very focused on maintaining their margins, improving their profitability. It's not something where farmers, can be complacent, right? They know they have to be adopting new technologies and new practices to stay competitive and continually stay profitable. And in a market, frankly, that can be very challenging for growers to really make money and stay in business. So if there are products out there that can help improve yields, improve stress tolerance, make farming more profitable and more successful, more stable, in our experience, farmers are always actively looking for technologies that can help them do that. Second, I think, is the large increase in input costs the past year for the most part, has really led to a much increased interest in this space, right? Fertilizer prices, as we all know, are incredibly high. Crop protection prices have been very volatile and increased dramatically in the past year or two. And some of these reasons are temporary, some are less temporary. But in any case, it's driving a strong interest in alternatives to traditional crop protection and fertilizer products, right? It's proven that the pricing of those products, the supply of those products can be very volatile for reasons that are completely outside of the farmer's control, right? Ranging from the pandemic to trade policy to shipping disruptions, right? Things that farmer has no control over have had a big impact on the supply and pricing of these products. And that I think has really hit home for growers, that starting to look at diversifying away from synthetic products that clearly do have some issues in terms of their reliability and pricing predictability is something that has really become a major source of focus. There's also the fact that there's growing resistance issues, right? When we think about pesticides, there's no question that resistance to chemical pesticides has increased dramatically, right? And in some areas has become very problematic, where weeds that were well controlled a couple of years ago are now very problematic. And this has really again hit home to the growers that we cannot take for granted that the crop input landscape that we're used to is necessarily going to be the same one that's going to work down the road. So very, very strong interest in exploring alternatives that can bet hedge and spread the risk around and have backup plans as some established products become less effective. That is also mixed with the fact that the innovation pipelines for new synthetic products is very thin, right? For the most part, there are not that many new synthetic products coming on the market, right? The majority of products that are on the market are off patent now of synthetic chemicals, and the pipeline for new products is obviously not as robust as it once was. There's a variety of reasons for that, but in any case, it is encouraging farmers to consider alternatives that do have a ton of investment, right? There's hundreds of companies, billions of dollars going into the biological space right now, which is very exciting. And farmers are excited as well to, look at alternatives to synthetic products that they've used before. And then the final reason I think that farmers are excited about this is that, regulatory and consumer trends are very clear where they're headed, right? How exactly that manifests in terms of supplier requirements on production data or regulatory rules on registrations and use restrictions of certain products, we don't know exactly, right? That's going to vary a lot by political climate, by region, by crop. So we don't know exactly what the future holds, but I think it is widely appreciated that there is growing concern, both from regulators and from consumers, and therefore flowing through to food companies, that there is increasing pressure to mitigate and reduce the use of synthetic products. Right or wrong, whatever our opinion may be, it doesn't matter. That is the reality, right? That is the way the industry is going, and it's very important that farmers adapt to that ahead of time. And I think farmers won't want to be ahead of this, right? They don't want to be caught off guard with regulations that they're scrambling to adapt to, right? They want to be early adopters in figuring out what are the technologies they need to develop, they need to adopt and explore that can help them navigate a potentially changing regulatory landscape. Now, at the same time, right, despite the excitement, and the excitement is real, we share the excitement too, there are some limiting factors, I think, from the farmer's perspective that are leading to biological adoption not being as fast as it otherwise could be. One of the reasons for that is simply the sheer number of products that are on the market, right? If you look at synthetic fertilizers, synthetic chemicals, there's a relatively small set of products that are available, right? There's slight versions and differences, but the major crop protection products and the major fertilizers used in most row crop settings is pretty commoditized. Biologicals are not commoditized, right? There are hundreds of technology developers around the world, hundreds and probably thousands of products on the market. And it could be a little bit overwhelming, right? It can be hard for the growers to know, in the sea of all these possible players, right? What are really the most compelling and most exciting products that are going to provide the most benefit to my farm, right? That's not an easy question to answer. Another big factor that I think can be frustrating to growers is really the lack of real world data from their local communities that really convinces them that products are going to be successful on their farm, right? There's a tremendous amount of data from lab studies, from greenhouse studies, from research farms. And farmers are just skeptical of that, right? Farmers don't believe necessarily that data from a research farm that's 100 miles away and has a different soil type and is a very small amount of data, they don't necessarily trust that that's going to lead to data that is relevant for their operation, right? So farmers really want to see more data. They always want more data, and that's fair, right? I always want more data too, but they always want more data. They want it to be closer to them. They want it to be more realistic, right? More in the real world, less in an academic research setting. And that is something that I think is a big opportunity. There's also thinking through just simplicity of product use, right? There are some products, no, not all, but some that have some pretty onerous restrictions on how they need to be applied. This could be tank mix requirements. It could be specific application windows. It could be multiple applications. It could be the need to keep the product refrigerated or at a certain humidity or something like that. And this can be challenging, right? Farms are real world settings, right? Things don't always go well. Farmers get busy, equipment breaks, weather gets in the way of applying at the right time. And sometimes products that have significant limitations on when and how they need to be applied can really make it difficult for farmers to adopt these products in an efficient way. And then the last thing I'll call out here is just limited data on how products work, right? There were some great presentations earlier that we talked about some of the specific mechanisms, which I think are really important, because farmers are skeptical of products when they don't understand what it's doing, right? If the claim is very broad in terms of, look, this helps the plant do this, it helps the plant uptake nutrients or mitigate stress, right? That's just too vague, too high level for the farmer to really know what's going on, right? So farmers typically want a little more info on mechanically, physically, what is the product doing? Why should we expect that it'll have a big positive impact? And then I'll just wrap up here with a couple of thoughts from the retailer perspective, right? And I think a lot of these will be similar to what we talked about with the grower, right? But from what gets us excited about this space, right, is partially our mission, right? Our goal as a company is really to help our farmers adopt products and technologies on their farm that are going to make them really successful, sustainable for the long term. And we know that as agriculture technology develops very quickly, there are new technologies in the biological space are going to play a really important role in helping farmers manage their farms profitably in the future. So this is something that, from a practical and mission perspective, we think is just core to continuing the FBN mission and helping our farmers be successful. We have to help farmers understand and successfully adopt the latest advances in technology, and biologicals are a big part of that. We also are very committed to, adapting early to trends that are very real in the market, right? We talked about the consumer trends, regulatory trends, trends necessitated by growing resistance issues. The crop input space now looks very different than it did 5 years ago. At 5-10 years from now, we know it's going to look very different still, right? The number of new technologies and great R&D work that's going on in this space, we can almost guarantee that the crop input usage of the future is going to look very different. And as a retailer, it's very critical that we are ahead of those trends, right? We can't be living with our head in the sand, assuming that what is common and popular today is going to be true down the road, right? So I think every retailer needs to be thinking progressively about how do we support growers down the road in the future when input demands may look very different than they do right now. And then finally, it definitely is an opportunity, a commercial opportunity as well, right? There are more products on the market, more use cases, and this is certainly from a new business model perspective, something that is also very compelling. Now, at the same time, right, we also face some of the similar challenges that our farmers face in terms of navigating what is a very large and complex space of many, many, many different products, right? Agriculture has, and biologicals specifically, right? There's a tremendous number of companies and products, and it can be hard for us to evaluate, right? What products are really, really good and what are ones that are not as exciting, and it's not easy to tell, right? There's a lot of companies with very similar claims, and you have to be very discerning and science and data driven in evaluating which of those products are really the most likely to be impactful. Similar to the grower perspective, right? We also struggle with the lack of real world data, right? The number of times that we've seen products that look very, very successful in a lab or a greenhouse setting that do not translate to real world farming environments is not insignificant, right? We really do see that getting that real world product validation is really, really important, and important to do very early rather than late in the R&D process. Another challenge as a retailer are some of the supply chain restrictions, right? Some of these products are more complex to distribute than traditional crop protection, right? They have shelf life limitations, they have temperature storage requirements that can make logistics difficult. Not every product, right? I think there's a lot of work going on in the industry to mitigate these challenges, which will be very important. But it is a consideration today as a retailer. We need to make sure that these products are feasible to distribute. And then the other reality, right, is that the sales process for biologicals is much more complex than it is for traditional crop protection. And this is not a bad thing, but it is something that we need to be prepared for, because these are not commodities, right? Not at all, not even close, right? It's not like glyphosate or glufosinate or some very commoditized crop protection chemical. These are products that are very unique, right? Every company's product is very different, has different strengths and weaknesses, and very important to have really good data to support that sale, to make those products be adopted at an effective rate. So just to wrap up, some of our suggestions, right? We'll spend 1 minute here, and we can pause if there's any time for questions, but really our advice that we see that we think can have a big impact on accelerating the adoption of biologicals, which is something that we care about and we want to help help this happen. But really one of our key focuses is we need to test products in the real world as soon as possible, right? We don't want to take data from lab studies and greenhouse studies, as an exclusive source of data, because it just isn't enough, right? We need to take the products to the real world soon to get data on how they perform. That's where the performance matters. That's where we need to run trials to get relevant data. We also need to, overinvest in data generation, right? We know that data is really key to farmers adopting these products. And we need to have data to support very prescriptive placement, right? We can't have a catalog of 500 products. We can't have, all these qualitative considerations about where to place products. We have to be very targeted, right? We have to be able to say, because your field has this type of soil, this type of crop rotation is prone to this type of weather stress, here are the products that we suggest, and here's why. So we really need to focus on investing in generating that data so that we can make that recommendation in a very accurate, science-driven way. We also need to prioritize practicality over, perfection, in my view, right? We have products that, have good shelf life, can mix in a lot of different chemicals and fertilizers in the tank. A lot of that will have more commercial impact than products that may work a little bit better, but have a long list of requirements in terms of when and how they need to be applied in order to get those benefits, right? So it's really important that we're focusing on real world practicality, right? Not academic correctness. And I think that's something a lot of companies are doing a great job of, but just something we need to stay focused on. And then the last part here is focusing on, being realistic about what we promise, right? We know that there are a lot of different products in the market. There's a lot of interest in this space from developers and from growers. And we just need to be open and honest with growers about what the limitations are, right? Nobody expects a product to work every time. Nobody expects the product to work on every acre. So don't promise that, right? And be realistic and honest about where products work, where they don't work. And that trust goes a long way to building the trust and relationship with the grower needed to get them, on board with our products that all of us are really excited about. So that's really what I had. I certainly really appreciate everybody's time. There are, tons of ways we can potentially partner with, product developers, grower organizations, anybody who is working in this space. So anybody who, is interested in connecting, I'd love to chat more, but really appreciate the time. And I don't know exactly how we're doing on schedules, but if we have a minute for questions, I'll turn it back over to the moderators to let us know if there are any questions and how many we have time for. But thank you again very much. Really appreciate it, and look forward to meeting you all.